Well, welcome. This is Garth Laidlaw. He's PortPrep's animation instructor, character design, storyboarding, you know, all that great stuff that you love, making your characters and learning what really makes a great story and how to make a portfolio that so you can get accepted into your favorite art school. Or, maybe you just love character design and stories, and you just want to enjoy how to develop that more. We've loved working together for, I guess, about 5 years now. And so I want to hear from you, Garth. Why did you want to create this animation summer camp with me, and why do you just keep loving to do it? What do you kind of look forward to about the summer camp this year?
Yeah, I guess one of my favorite things to see in students and what I'm most excited to teach is storytelling, and specifically how accessible storytelling is. So most students have this feeling that only certain people are basically allowed or granted the great ability to be storytellers. But I think part of what we do at PortPrep is to communicate that it's not an exclusive domain. Anyone can participate in it. And actually the sooner that you start, the better. Then you get many years of practice, because you need that to tell great stories and to design great stories. Those two things are intertwined. And so those are my most excited things that I get to do at PortPrep summer camp.
Nice. So for your courses, you're teaching intro to story, story structure, how the characters can kind of evolve out of the story you want to tell. And then you teach us about character design, and then, how they should move, and then how to rotate them and put them in different scenes and create storyboards. And you also introduce us to some digital painting and some animation techniques too. So with all that kind of stuff that you're teaching, what would be sort of the top takeaway you hope students will get from the summer camp, from the courses you teach?
Probably that they just have a clear idea as to what is, I guess, expected in the whole process of making a story. So sometimes, like when you're doing it yourself and you don't really have an idea of what an actual production pipeline looks like, you're kind of just sketching and writing things, and it's kind of disorganized and not really building to anything eventually. But with this process, like this process is used by the biggest studios in the world, and so it's a great process to know about and to see how, like, when do you do the character design, when do you make backgrounds, how far along does the story need to be before you're starting to design things in the story. And so this is obviously this is a course for visual artists. It's not for writers necessarily, but I hope to also instill that everyone in this course is a storyteller in the designs that you make. And so even if you're just drawing a character, that character has to be infused with a believable, real personality that we could believe exists somewhere. So that's part of why we kind of develop, like, I really push students to really dig into the background of their characters and the like what drives them, what motivates that character, what are their shortcomings, what are their strengths, things like that, because I think all of that stuff helps to infuse how characters look. And yeah, so we kind of, this is a very holistic process. We kind of design with everything in mind, not just because you like the aesthetics of the character or something. You don't just, we're not just designing because it's, oh, that's a nice looking character. There needs to be a certain grounding behind that character. Why are we watching them? What is their purpose, and what role are they going to play in the story?
So is that what you learned when you studied at Sheridan Animation, or is this something that you've come to know through your career?
A little bit of both. It's been some years since I was at Sheridan, but what I remember, the character design process was, it was very focused on design. Like a high school classes, each class is very targeted. So you have a character design class, and you have life drawing, and then you have story. So those are all separate, and they're not always completely correlated with the other courses. Whereas this is like, an entire holistic, the whole thing is built together like one big moving machine. So we're going to be
Tell us
making
a bit about that then, like, so that the students that would like to come to our summer camp, what can they expect with regards to how this sort of thing you're saying about how it's integrated as to one thing, as opposed to kind of separate courses?
Yeah. So the way that we basically do that is by making a whole film pre-production, basically. So pre-production is all the design that goes into making a film. And so basically we're going to work on one story, or we can each have our own little small pieces of a story, but we're all building some kind of cohesive storyline, and we're designing all the different aspects of that. So, and everyone gets a piece of that pie. So you're not just like at a studio, you might just be a storyboarder or an animator or a character designer. In this process, we're each going to do everything. So we're each going to design characters. We're each going to storyboard. We're each going to do background design, a little bit of color and digital painting too. So it's kind of like you get to experience the whole thing, the whole like process of basically what would it take to make a film, an animated film. And also like it's good to try everything, because as young artists, you might not necessarily know exactly what it is in the animation pipeline or in any kind of artistic pipeline that is involved with storytelling. Like children's books is equally applicable from this course. And, you know, you might not know exactly what you want to do in that whole process, but this course should help you understand what kind of art you actually like to do, because we're going to push you to try everything.
Yeah. So over the 2 weeks, we make one story, and and as they're making that story as a group, you know, you're learning all about all these things you were just telling us about, and then each student takes like one of the characters to kind of develop more fully and draw it, and they learn how to do it, you know, characters' expressions and rotations, all those things you need to know if you want to make a portfolio to apply to college. But they're doing it for the story as a group, so it's really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then you get to take a section of the story to do the storyboarding, and then it all gets stuck back together. And what do you call it when you make that sort of slideshow? What's the term animators use?
An animatic.
An animatic. I always forget that word. So we make a little animatic because we don't have time to actually do a little animated short. That would take a lot more time than we have. And then we present that at the end in a showcase that the parents are invited to if they want to come. So it's really fun to see it all come together. And then what we're doing during the day, the other instructors are teaching all of the sort of visual drawing skills in service to the story. So it is really integrated. So if you want to be drawing character expressions and things like that, we're going to learn about portrait from observation and expression of our own faces so that we can apply it to our characters. And it starts to give it a little more life and structure, and understand that 3D world so that like our characters can kind of inhabit a world and have a little more kind of jump off the page a bit more with a bit more life if we're learning from life. So, you know, when you get into drawing the whole body, you know, we're doing figure drawing too, or observing. Actually have students learn a little bit how to understand how to look at the point of like a character rotation from different points of view by just drawing toys, little action figures of some of our favorite characters, so they can sort of understand a little bit more that 3D understanding, because a lot of younger animators, they tend to draw their characters kind of from the same point of view, and we want to have them put them in scenes and have them move and be in action. So and one of the things that's kind of fun that I like that we do, we take a scene out of their storyboard and then learn how to compose it well, to visually storytell. And that is what's, you know, that visual storytelling and composition, it's so applicable to any kind of art, really. So, because sometimes we have students that aren't necessarily absolutely sure if they want to go into animation or illustration or maybe more concept art or concept illustration. And all those things are related, especially when it comes to scene design. And so, you know, and if we're going to draw a scene, then we need to understand how to draw perspective. and how to put our characters in those scenes. So the whole thing like fits together. So it's so fun, you know, to watch that develop through the weeks together.
Yeah.
So, and then it gets into things like the digital painting and some of the animation that you teach. And all of these things are the kinds of skills you need to make a portfolio anyway, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think it's fun for any age, even if you're not ready to apply yet, just to get, just sort of figure out, just explore what is animation and the related fields.
Yeah.
So in your field of design, like can you tell us a bit about your career and show us some of your work? So you studied animation at Sheridan, and you work both as an animator and an illustrator and a fine artist. Can you tell us a little bit about your career and kind of what you're excited about or working on recently? You're so prolific and disciplined, and you've created so much since you've graduated. It's really inspiring, and that's one of the things I love about students meeting you, I think, and the parents too. They feel this sense of encouragement of, wow, look how possible this is. That this teacher, you know, it does this full time for a living in one way or another. And so I'd love to have you share a little bit about your own career.
Sure. I'm sort of the king of personal projects. I feel like I have a lot of client work and professional work, but I also just, whenever I have a moment to breathe, I'm throwing that right into some kind of personal project of my own, an art project. And so that manifests as a whole bunch of different things. Like for me right now, I have multiple children's books that are sort of written and ready to illustrate. So I can kind of I can do that whenever I'm feeling that. And then I have my painting, which I'm increasingly doing over the course of since 2018, I suppose. And I'm loving that. So I spend a ton of time developing paintings and going to markets and galleries and selling them. And then also I also enjoy writing, and so I hope to write more stories too. So it's kind of a I love doing my client work is to basically be a motion graphic or a freelance animator. Occasionally getting to do a little bit of frame by frame animation, which is the best. But that basically, it's super fun too. It uses a different part of my brain. It's more of a technical side. So there's all the way, because basically I think that no one is entirely one thing. That's kind of my belief, that like we have times when we want to be more artistic and sort of free flowing. And then there's times when we want to be very technical and you want to just kind of have like a complex problem to solve, almost like a mathematical kind of desire. So there's like the spectrum of like this, which is super painterly and expressive for me, and I can just kind of do this. It's very immediate. And then there's all the way to the technical spectrum, which is like, making a complex movement in animation video or character animation or something like that, which can get very technical. So depending on where you sit in that spectrum, you're going to tend to basically be, more expressive or more technical, but you can also do multiple things at the same time. And so I think that's really great. And that's what actually gives me, it always gives me a second wind to switch gears a little bit and to try something else. And sometimes I'll see a children's book and that'll reawaken my love of children's books. And then I'll immediately like get a story from even being inspired. And then I'll start working on it right away and then push all my professional work out of the way so that I can work on my own children's book.
Show us some examples. Like when you say kids' books, can you show us one of your kids' books? Like we're screen share, just go online and screen share, or do you have things on your website that you?
Oh yeah, I can. Screen share makes more sense. Okay. All right.
Yeah, you've done kids book illustration. You've got a graphic novel.
Yeah. Oh, so this is my children's book. It released in 2015 in soft and hardcover. And I just had a ton of fun, like figuring out the layout of the pages and like the design of the pages. And then obviously the illustrations took most of the time, about 9 months. And I was inspired when I traveled to Tanzania in Africa, and then I came back and basically made this book immediately. I wrote so much when I was there, and so I decided to actually make it into something. And yeah, so I've gotten it reviewed. I've did a little behind the scenes of, and then you can see some of the illustrations from it down here too. So yeah, and I visit schools and I do talks with children and workshops and things like that. So it's kind of an ongoing process of promoting it and getting it out there. But really the best way to see like a good synthesis of my work is just to sort of look at either my illustration page, like I do some fantasy art for board games, things like that. And that's the wrong thing. Why did it go to that? Here we go. So, and then I have my animation as well. So there are two entirely different portfolios. So I have a ton of animation on my animation page, starting all the way with my Sheridan film that I did, all the way up to sort of my more current stuff that involves kind of like watercolory looking animation, which is kind of neat because I don't see too much of that. So I want to try something completely new.
You want?
Oh yeah.
Called one. I don't know, anyone.
Sure. Well, this is a demo reel, so this is
Oh, perfect. Oh, cool.
Yeah, so this is a whole bunch of different kinds of animation. There's a little bit of whiteboard sort of animation there, this watercolory effect. So this is this new watercolor animation style that I'm kind of trying out. This one's about the waste of the food system. So it's often kind of informative videos about different things. Sometimes it's just how to use a product or a website, and sometimes it's something more fun like this, which is kind of explaining the diversity of the food system and how it all needs to kind of work together symbiotically. So I'm using a lot of different techniques in that. So there's one. This is sort of a synthesis of a bunch of different stuff. But occasionally I'll get a little bit of frame-by-frame animation like here, where I actually get to draw a character that's moving a little bit. And then there's even some 3D. Oh, it's over here. So this is a 3D town that I made in Blender. And so that was really fun. But then recently, this is another one that I did that was pretty neat. Also kind of a different style.
I like how you end up doing work that
So I had a lot of fun with the transition from scene to scene. It's almost like an editorial illustration, but that is moving. So I'm kind of combining a lot of different techniques here. So the movements are a little simpler, but it's more of like the design, the creation of the actual scenes. That was really fun. And then there's this this fun little character animation. It's a longer video, but
cool.
Yeah. So this is some of this one.
Thanks. That's neat to see. So what's your next project? Like what's your next exciting thing that you're onto?
Sorry?
What's the next exciting thing that you're working on?
Well, I mean, so many things. And how to stop sharing.
I heard that you got a grant or something.
Yeah, so I've been working with someone for the past year, or more than that, more like 1.5 years to 2 years. And we realized she basically wanted me to animate a personal story of something that happened in her life. And I kept throwing ideas at her, and then it kind of blew up. And then we're like, okay, this needs to be bigger than what we had initially intended. And so I sent her information with this Ontario Arts Council grant. And so she did the whole thing, and I helped out. I helped create the budget and the whole production. And then we got it. So now we're basically making this this amazing short, kind of very personal, very like emotional film that it's only going to be 3-4 minutes, but it's really neat, and it will involve a lot of really neat animation, a lot of frame by frame animation, which is sort of the best and most like flexible kind of animation because you can make characters do anything. Sort of the old school style that they did in Disney, but then applying like different coloring methods on top. So a whole bunch of new stuff. There's a lot of great software these days. That's one of the things that I'm most excited about. It's just that there's so much, and it's getting so much more efficient in some ways, so that you don't have to. There was a big problem a while ago where like you would be inhibited by what software was available to make animation from, but now there's so many choices, and really the limitation is I guess your budget and your time, how much you can do it. But you can do it from a computer. You can do it from a home computer. So that's so great.
And you're going to introduce a couple of programs during our summer camp too.
Yeah.
I think it's TV Paint and what's the other one?
Well, Photoshop we'll be using a lot, and also a little bit of After Effects. After Effects does compositing and a little bit of light animation, but TV Paint does kind of great frame by frame style animation.
Great. So that'll be fun too to get an introduction to. So now we have, I want you to share with us a little bit about one of our teachers that is going to be a special guest at our camp this year. We have Mark Thurman. He's the figure drawing instructor at Sheridan Animation currently. It's been there for quite a long time, and he is such a gifted figure drawing artist and absolutely loves teaching figure drawing. And he couldn't join us online, but he did send us some of his thoughts and some work that we can look at. And you were actually a student of his. So I was wondering if you could share with us both your impression of what you loved about his class when you studied with him, and maybe read out some of the answers he wrote for us of why he agreed to come and teach a one-day figure drawing. So it's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And I mean, I'm going to be there. I want to listen in too.
Yeah.
Are you going to come?
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent.
So great. And I mean, everyone remembers his class from first year. And I think he was a perfect first year animation figure drawing teacher because he knows there's a massive gap between where people end off at the end of high school and where college begins. And especially if you're going straight to animation, because that is just, the expectation is really huge for what you need to be able to know. And so because some people, even if you're great at looking at something and copying it, there's more to this than that. You can't just look at something and be able to replicate it perfectly. You also need to know and understand what's happening under the hood, basically, under the body, the bones, the muscles, all that. There's times when even if you draw exactly what you see, if you don't know how things are attached, it will look wrong. It's like, I always compare it to when you see a portrait that someone's done and one eye is slightly higher than another, because people notice that immediately. It just gives this uncomfortable feeling of like, ew, something's wrong there. And so it's like that, where even if you copy it perfectly, it'll look wrong, which is a weird concept to wrap your head around.
Yeah, and for animation, you need to understand how people move.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not enough, and you need to be able to draw from your imagination eventually. At first we have to do a lot of observational drawing, but that observational drawing, you're building the understanding of the inner structure so that you can move characters and people in space and have it be believable. So I'm going to screen share some of his drawings while you read out his answers. Okay?
Sure.
Questions. All right. So I'm just going to click through some of his drawings that are on his website.
Sure. All right. So the first question is, what are you excited about sharing? And his response is, a more personal take on figure drawing. I've loved to draw the human figure since going to the high school art program at Central Tech at the age of 13. Here, we were introduced to the drawings of Raphael, Michelangelo, Rembrandt, and others. Right from the start, I was good at it. I got good marks, I got attention from teachers and classmates. I think the positive attention at this stage was a very big motivator, as well as anatomy fascinated me. I wanted to know how the human body worked. At this age, I also collected animal bones. And just a brief interlude, I remember him bringing in some animal bones into class, and we were just like, what is this? But it was amazing, and he explains the story about how he collects animal bones so that he can reconstruct them and figure out their anatomy. So I love that he included this in his response. Okay, continuing on. My relationship with drawing the human figure for over 50 years has gone through changes on why I continue to do it. Early on, it was something to master and explore through media and technique. Also to learn what could be done within a certain time period. That's a great point, because in animation you need to draw these quick little poses. Like for the first year, I don't remember doing a pose longer than 5 minutes or 10 minutes. These days, it is a kind of meditation and therapy. When concentrating deeply, the outside world disappears. The inside world is something I can get into very quickly and get lost in the rhythm and the form of each pose. Drawing the nude figure also gets you in touch with your humanity. Young, old, thin, heavy, muscular, very human. There is a humility in trying to capture another person's being in essence through a drawing or a painting. Drawing still gives me great joy. I love that sign-off line because it's so true, and it's good to remember it all the time. All right, number 2. What is the top takeaway students will get from the workshop? Draw stronger figures using structure, proportion, midline, rotation, and basic anatomy, as well as how to hold conte so you don't get radial carpal tunnel syndrome. The workshop will give students an understanding and overview about what makes a strong figure drawing, and how this is one of the fundamentals of traditional animation. What projects are you currently working on? Students at Sheridan have been bugging me for at least 10 years, and I was one of them, to do a book on figure drawing. I finally started working on a book 2 years ago. It has turned into a series of books on drawing the figure. I have completed 3 books already: figure drawing, the portrait in the head, and gouache, basic techniques. This is great, because I remember seeing some of his gouache paintings during life drawing, which is something I really loved about Mark, is he brought in his work to show us.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Portrait. Here's the portrait. Yeah, I'm hoping he'll bring some of these books with him to the workshop. Really want to have a closer look in here inside. I might want to buy one.
Yeah. Currently, the last thing he mentioned is just that he's now working on hands and feet and arms and legs, and figure drawing book 2, whatever that means. So
great, cool. So yeah, we're really looking forward to having him join us. So there seems to be an echo or something. So maybe it's a good sign that we're kind of done anyway, right?
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing your ideas and what you're excited about in the summer camp. And one last thing though, why did you want to create this with me?
The camp or just PortPrep entirely?
Like, do you remember what made you want to create this camp together?
Well, yeah, part of it is the lack of knowledge that students know prior to getting into the program. Like I remember when I was trying to get in, there was just nothing that was so comprehensive as what we're trying to offer through this, is to create the whole process of the portfolio and all the different things that you'll be doing in it in one cohesive 2-week intensive package, which is kind of perfect because, you know, I might not have had the time all summer to do something, but 2 weeks is amazing. That's like, and it's so packed full of stuff that it's like doing a whole semester of college in 2 weeks. That's kind of how I describe it to students, which is like fun, both economically, it really works, I think, for people that it's like so smushed together. I prefer learning that way because then you have plenty of time afterwards to kind of digest it all. you do it, and then you can go home, and then you've got a whole bunch of new tools, and it hasn't even been that much time. So yeah, I think it's a great service.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what I wanted to do with the camp we made is to give the students those fundamental skills and these sort of snapshots into all the different types of drawings you need to know to be able to make a portfolio, to study animation, or illustration. A lot of what we teach is also applicable to illustration. And you know, it's related to any kind of visual arts, but it's just that it's a little more focused on animation, because I think animation is a little more specific. Like, you can take an art fundamentals program or a foundations program, and it might prepare you well for illustration, but it won't have everything you need for animation. And so that's why it was really great to make something specific for that. But what I really hope and have sort of designed into our program is that students get those fundamental underlying skills and some good sort of habits to start from that they can build on. Like, if you take our 2-week camp, you're not going to come up with a portfolio in 2 weeks. Like, we're not portfolio polishers. We teach you the understanding and the skills and the thinking so that you can go out and make it over the next year or 2 years or whatever it's going to take you. And we have students sometimes that start with us younger, and they'll maybe do just a few workshops, or they'll do the week one year and do week 2 the other year, and then they'll come back in their senior year and do the whole thing in a concentrated way because they're ready to apply. So, you know, that's what I want. I want the students to really understand what they're doing and start building the right kind of skills, and build some confidence and some excitement too, that motivation. And I think what helps after they finish our camp is I think they feel more able to do it, and to kind of know a little bit more what to focus on, because sometimes they don't really know, and they're kind of, you know,
Yeah,
swimming
sometimes it's
around
even just a
trying
matter of like the keywords, like knowing what the keywords are, what visual development means, what concept art is, like what
Sure.
is
Yeah.
previs, like all these different things that are used a lot in the industry that don't they're not always the greatest words, to be honest, and they're not clear, because a good
Yeah.
word, you can say it and know what it means just from saying it. But some of these are almost like codes, like little
Yeah.
cryptic code words to make it seem more extravagant than it actually is.
And so it helps to understand what those things are, to even if you want to search ways to learn more about it, if you don't even know the term, you don't even know what to look for. So I think we give people a good sort of path that they can follow after they leave. So I'm just so delighted to be doing this together, and that we get students from across North America and even from other countries that come to study with us. Of course, lots of local people, but it's just so exciting when you see all those different people come together that just love animation and story, and it's always so much creative fun. And every year we enjoy meeting new students and just watching their ideas kind of light up, you know,
Yeah.
and friendship spark and all of that. It's really, really delightful. So, well, thank you for taking time to share with us today, Garth.
No problem.
Really adore working with you, and I know the students especially do. So, yeah, and I think, you know, it gives good results, right? I mean, you've helped so many students get accepted, whether they're applying out of high school or they've been, you know, working on their skills for several years. You kind of just help people with those finishing touches to kind of fill in some of the missing links or just get some input. And I think it really helps that if somebody wants to go to Sheridan because you studied there, you kind of have a pretty good idea of what it takes and what they're looking for, because you've been through the experience as a student. And I think that's one reason why students connect well with you. It's not just that you, like some of our other teachers teach there. It's kind of nice because you're that in between, a recent grad and a working artist and a teacher. And I think students just really like that real connection that you have that they can relate to. So thanks for being part of it. I couldn't do without you. Like, no way. I don't know. Actually, I don't know really. What I know about animation, I learned from you. Because I'm
Yeah.
a fundamentals art teacher, drawing teacher, not an animator. So
Yeah.
anyway, so I hope you have a good day.
All right.
And we look forward to you guys. If you're watching this, send us some comments, ask us questions, because that's something that you and I are going to be doing really soon. We're going to do a live stream Q&A. And we kind of get a sense of what students want to know about, but probably, we don't know for sure what their questions are. So we want to hear from you guys. What do you want to know about? And Garth is going to be able to answer your questions. So be watching for that. We're going to let you know when it's happening, and send out some feelers so that you can chat with us live or email us or put comments under this video so we know what you want to know about, maybe about our summer camp, but more in general, just what to work on this summer. I guess is kind of what I'm thinking, but how do I know what their questions are? You guys got to tell us.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have a sense of what their questions would be because you've worked with so many students?
A little bit,
Yeah.
but I leave the floor to them alone to
Absolutely.
ask whatever they want.
Yeah. All right. Bye for now.
All right. See you.